I got my first guitar when I was about 9 years old. It was an old acoustic guitar. Well, it was a new acoustic guitar. I believe it was from Otasco. Anyway, it was a very inexpensive guitar. I remember the strings were quite high off the fret, and it was a challenge to play, but I felt like I either had to learn how to play or die. I never put the guitar down. And through the years, I excelled at playing and really loved it. It just would listen to all the records and play them over and over, and all the current records on the radio, and try to learn how to play. And also loved to write songs. So when I was 16, I had just gotten my driver's license, and I was looking for an audience. So anywhere I could find anybody to listen to me play, I would be there. So of course I did a lot of those things at church with youth groups and things like that. But I was trying to figure out how I could increase my audience. And so I came up with an idea of going to the hospital there in South Pittsburgh, in my hometown, a little small hospital. And so I went in and asked if I could go from room to room and just play guitar. And they thought it was a great idea. So yeah, I'd go in one room and I would play and play and play, and I would get some smiles. And of course that just made me even more determined to play for somebody. And sometimes I would go into a room and would get very little response, and then maybe even just a smile would be just enough for me to continue and encourage me. And so all of a sudden, one of the physicians came up here. I believe it was Dr. Taylor, who came up to me when I came in one day, and he said, "James, we want to talk to you about something." I think what had happened is they started seeing patients respond to the medication. Something about just having somebody come in. It wasn't that I was a great performer or whatever. It was just somebody coming in with a guitar and doing something with music. So they had been monitoring and had been seeing patients that I'd leave their room, and they would be responding to their medications. So this went on for several months. I worked at a little, at Paul's Food Market. It's the only little grocery store that was in my hometown there in South Pittsburgh. And really sought after job, and somehow he took a liking to me. And I guess because I would go in and say I would mop the floors, I would sweep, I would do anything to get a job there. It was a lot easier than baling hay for 40 cents an hour out in the hot sun. Anyway, so one day I went to the hospital, and they took me into, they said, "We want to take you into a room." But they tried to prepare me for meeting this little boy. His name was Billy. And they said, "He has Wilms cancer." And they tried to explain it to me. I guess I was just really looking for an audience at 16. But they tried to explain to me what I was going to be and prepare me what my eyes were going to see when I walked in that room. And they said, "He looks like his skin is just stretched over his skeleton, and his stomach is really big. His tummy's really big." And I said, "Okay, I'll go play." Well, that did not prepare me for what I saw when I walked into the room, but I launched into every song I knew of, and the little boy just did not respond. And his mother and his grandmother were there. They were there every day, and I played, and every time the door would open, he would barely open his eyes to see if it was his father. His father and his mother were divorced, and unfortunately the father never did come to see the little boy. It was very sad. But here I was at 16, and I was looking for an audience, and I had this little boy, and it was a challenge because he just wasn't responding. And it took me about 3 or 4 days, and finally he opened his eyes, and that was all it took. I played my heart out. I went from one song to the other, every single song I knew, and started working on playing the one that I had written. And we became fast friends. I'm not sure if it was like a father figure. He was just 10 and I was 16. We were both kids, but maybe it was more like a big brother. Nevertheless, he responded, and he had the most incredible blue eyes. The other person in my life that had eyes like that was my mom. Beautiful blue eyes, brilliant blue eyes. It's like looking at a beautiful topaz or a beautiful, just a beautiful water in a foreign country, and the Caribbean or places like that I've been to. Anyway, so I played for 2 weeks. I would go in every day, and that little boy Billy would look forward to me coming, and so would his mom and his grandmother. And then one day I was working at the food market after school, and they called me and they said, "Can you get here quickly?" And I had a little Volkswagen, and I just took off running. And Paul, Mr. Turner, said, "James, where are you going?" I said, "I've got to go to the hospital." And I just took off. And so I got there, and they met me, and they just said, he's not going to last very long. And you know, again, I had been around death, but not a youngster like that. And so I just go into the room, and when I entered the room, I'll never forget this. The grandmother was on one side of the bed, and the mother was on the other, and they each had his little tiny hands. And it just seemed like they just floated back. They just let his hands go when I came in the room, and they just moved back. And I went to him, and his eyes were closed, and I put my arm under his neck, and he opened his eyes. There were those beautiful blue eyes, and we locked eyes. We just locked eyes. And suddenly, he just had the biggest smile on his face. And then he passed away. I was only 16, but when I left that room, I was nothing like other 16-year-olds. It taught me a great life lesson. The power that music has on someone's life, or just the power of being there, just being there, or the fact that you're willing to give yourself. I left there that day no longer a 16-year-old. I had grown up quite a bit. And also, I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I knew that I was going to try and harness all the goodness and all the power that comes with music. So at that point, I believe that I knew what I was going to be doing with my life. And, you know, through my life, I've always wondered, through my professional career, I've just had so many wonderful things happen. But I always wondered why I never became wealthy. For a long time, I just thought, wow, you know, all these things, and why am I not wealthy? You know, I've helped build playgrounds and raise money for all sorts of things. And then one day I performed my song. I believe I was in Lebanon, Tennessee, and there was a select group of people there. And my song "Dreams" I co-wrote with Tom Kimmel, and it's probably one of the prettiest songs I ever had the fortune to write. And so "Dreams," the name of the song, I finished the song, and then I was doing autographs, and all of a sudden I just felt a tiny body just grabbed me from behind, and it was this frail little lady, a senior citizen, gray hair, tiny little thing. And she just had me in a bear hug, and she had tears running down her cheeks. And she said, you know, I lost my husband recently. We were married 55 years. We did everything together. We danced, and oh, the look on her face was just amazing. I was mesmerized by her stories. And she said just it was so difficult that she had lost her life partner. And she said, after hearing your song Dreams, I realized that I need a new dream. Well, all I could do was to grab her and hold on to her and just squall. Another life lesson is giving of yourself. And your music and the words that you write, when it touches someone like that, it has made me redefine wealth. And now I realize that I did become wealthy.